All right, welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Report. I'm your host, Chase Sr. Thank you so much for being here. Coming up here on the show, there has been so much NFL news league-wide over the last couple of days throughout this week, and a lot of it, in a way, impacts the San Francisco 49ers going into training camp. So that's all coming up right now. Specifically what we're discussing. Terry McLaurin wants a new deal, how the wide receiver market and some of these contracts impacts the Jauan Jennings situation. The Niners also pulled off a steal considering what a cornerback just got paid and what Deommodore Lenoir is getting paid. Another big money deal for an offensive lineman affects Dominic Pooney's future, and is Nick Bosa about to be a bargain? So many juicy topics, I almost ran out of breath. Let's begin with topic number one in Terry McLaurin. He said this to NBC Sports Washington. He wants a new deal, and he is not happy with how things are going in our nation's capital. I've been pretty frustrated. I'm not going to lie. Everything that has transpired up to this point has been disappointing and frustrating. I want to continue my career here. I've created my life here. My wife and I bought our first home here. So this has been somewhere I've always wanted to be. Just to see how things have played out has been disappointing. Obviously, I understand everything's a business, but at the same time, I want to put myself in a position where I'm valued, I feel appreciated, and things like that. Unfortunately, that hasn't transpired the way that I wanted to. I'm just trying to take things day by day. At the beginning of this process, I honestly just wanted for things to work out. I thought things would be more progressed than they are. So at this point, it's kind of up in the air. For those of you not familiar with this story, McLaurin has been an incredible player for Washington. Former second-round pick out of Ohio State. Year one, he goes over 900 yards. And in each of the last 5 years, even with suspect bad quarterback play outside of 2024 with Jayden Daniels, he's gone over 1,000 yards. He's going into the final year of his contract, about to enter his age 30 season. Anytime you hit that marker as far as your age goes, teams get a little bit worried about some of these big money deals. But the Commanders just made it to the NFC Championship game. They traded for Deebo Samuel because they needed a number 2 wideout. They're trying to take advantage of Jayden Daniels being on his rookie contract. They spent a lot of money on defense, including a crazy $15 million per year deal for Javon Kinlaw, and they are trying to go all in. But the Commanders are not capable of going all in, regardless of how good Jayden Daniels is, without their top wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. Now, how this impacts San Francisco. Of course, the Niners traded Deebo to Washington for a 5th-round pick. You want the Commanders to be as bad as possible for that 5th-round pick to be better. Sorry, I'm just being selfish. There have also been Aiyuk McLaurin trade rumors. If BA is unhappy with the Niners, McLaurin is unhappy with the Commanders. The Niners have that working relationship and line of communication with Adam Peters because he was the assistant GM under John Lynch. Can you make a trade like that happen? I've never said that a trade of that caliber, or even that trade in general, is likely, especially with Brandon Aiyuk getting paid a lot of money, getting paid what McLaurin is looking to get paid coming off a knee injury. And so even though Aiyuk and Jayden Daniels are best friends and they played together at Arizona State, why would the Commanders pay Aiyuk and trade for him over just paying Terry McLaurin, who is one of the best wide receivers in the history of that organization? How this also impacts San Francisco is that Washington is a significant threat in the NFC. They're looked at as one of the top contenders in this conference, standing between the Niners and them trying to get to Levi's Stadium and stay home for Super Bowl 60 perhaps, or at least a road for a playoff run. And then also how this impacts San Francisco. The wide receiver market has been exploding. It once again just picked up renewed steam with Garrett Wilson. We'll get to that here in a second. It could once again see another player get highly compensated in McLaurin, who's looking for $30+ million per year. And I'm not saying that Jauan Jennings is on the level of McLaurin or Garrett Wilson. He's not. Those are bona fide number 1 wide receivers. I think Jennings is an awesome number 2 and elite number 3. But the Niners have to get ahead of this. They learned their lesson by paying Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, and George Kittle this offseason. Deommodore Lenoir during the year last year. They realized we have been waiting to sign our own players to these contract extensions. By waiting, we have cost ourselves a lot of money. Let's get ahead of the market. And they got ahead of the market with Purdy, Kittle, Warner, especially Deommodore Lenoir, who we're going to talk about here on today's show. And again, Jauan Jennings is not going to demand top 10 wide receiver money. But the more receivers who get paid and the more cash that they get, in a way, increases the price tag and the demand of Jennings. I was saying back in December, the Niners signed Jauan Jennings to a contract extension through the 2025 season, last offseason. This offseason, the Niners need to sign him to another deal. I also said this back in May. The time is now. The 49ers should sign Jauan Jennings ASAP. Him and Colton McKivitz, the only marquee free agents after this year, unlike last year when you had a bunch of free agents. You let a lot of them go. Next offseason, the two players who you might be interested in bringing back, McKivitz and Jennings. And when I say marquee free agents, I'm sorry. The Niners look at McKivitz as a marquee player. And so if you pay Jennings now, I think that you can get him between $11 and $15 million. That is a bargain for a number two, if you envision him being that. Devontae Smith is a number two. He's making $25 million, right? Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are making $25 to $30 million per year as a 1-2 punch at wide receiver. You get Jennings between 11 and 15, that is a bargain. And I know he hasn't put up massive, gaudy numbers, but everybody who's watched the Niners over the last few years knows how important Jauan Jennings has been, how clutch he has been, and what he's meant to this team emotionally, as a leader, run blocking, and as a receiver. And speaking of Garrett Wilson, he too got a bag. 4 years, $130 million, $90 million in guaranteed money. That rounds out to $32.5 million average annual value. And Jennings knows that he's not going to be on this list of the top 10 highest paid wide receivers, but him and his agent are probably looking at his deal saying, $7.5 million? How much did the Niners rely on Jauan Jennings last year to be their number one wide receiver with all of those injuries? He is due a significant pay raise. As for Brandon Ayuk, the Garrett Wilson contract impacting him as well, because Wilson becomes the fifth highest paid wideout in the NFL at $32.5. That slides Brandon Ayuk down to number 8 at $30 million. That's how quickly the market can change, especially when you factor in how the NFL as a business property is booming, leading to the salary cap increasing and all of the salary cap inflation. Wilson, in his career, first 3 years, he's gone over 1,000 yards in each season. That's impressive because of how bad the quarterback play has been with the Jets. The issue with Wilson drops. 5, 7, and 7 the first 3 years of his career. That is 19 drops so far in 3 seasons. And with Jennings, last year, 113 targets, 77 catches, 975 yards, 6 touchdowns. If he didn't get ejected in the regular season finale, he's probably over 1,000 yards. Now, a reason why the Niners aren't going to have to break the bank to pay him, he has 1 good year of production. And prior to that, he never even sniffed coming close to 1,000 yards. But the big playability, how much he was relied on last year, the connection he has with Brock Purdy, it's so important to get this deal done, especially considering, again, have to harp on this, that he's not going to cost all that much money compared to the rest of the wide receiver market. Sauce Gardner, as the Jets have been busy this week, also getting a contract extension. And he becomes the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. 4 years, $120.4 million for him, and he gets $30.1 million per year. The cornerback market is another position that has skyrocketed as far as value the last few years. And these contracts have become so large so quickly. Sauce is making 30 and a dime, overtakes Derek Stingley, who signed earlier this offseason at 30. You have J.C. Horn, who's a good player, not a great player, making 25 per year. Jalen Ramsey's older, on the other side of 30. He's making 24 and a dime. Pat Surtain signed that deal early. He's a bargain now compared to the rest of the market at 24 even. Then you have A.J. Terrell at 20 and a quarter, Denzel Ward at 20 plus, Marshawn Lattimore 19 and a half, Marlon Humphrey 19 and a half, and Trayvon Diggs at 19.4. It was, I think, going into 2022 that Trayvon Diggs signed his extension, which made him the highest paid corner in the game at 19.4, I believe. And already he's down at number 10. And where the Niners come into play here, again, they acted early finally, and they signed a player to a contract extension well before the deadline. You don't always have to wait for the deadline. Sometimes you have to act early, and when you do that, you can get a player at 60 to 70% of the market value and or save yourselves a bunch of money. The Niners, during the season last year, gave Deommodore Lenoir a contract extension, 5 years, $88.8 million, $38.3 million in guaranteed money, worth $17.7 million per season. Deommodore Lenoir has given up one touchdown in coverage the last 3 years. He has turned into one of the heart and souls of this Niners defense alongside Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. If he were to have hit free agency, considering he's a young player who was looking for a second contract, and the Niners didn't sign him during the year, they probably would not have been able to bring him back, or they would have had to have paid him around $20 million per year. So this Deommodore Lenoir contract, a steal for San Francisco, because I thought last year he played at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level, and again, you look at a player like J.C. Horn getting $25 million per year, Lenoir's been better than him. He just wasn't a first-round pick like J.C. A quick reminder to hit that subscribe button here on the San Francisco 49ers Report if you want the best Niners coverage coming your way every single day. Lock us in here on the show. In June, we gained 990 subscribers. Here we are on July 16th, about halfway through the month. We're a little bit behind pace, but we can change that in an instant with this show. 318 people have subscribed here in the month of July. Hit that sub button, and what you get, elite Daily Niners coverage. Trey Smith, another player across the NFL who landed a huge contract extension. Kansas City Chiefs deciding not to just keep the franchise tag on him for 2025 and instead get him locked down to a long-term contract deal. 4-year extension, $94 million, $70 million guaranteed. And his APY, average per year, is $23.5 million. That is number one among all guards in the NFL. Left guard, right guard. Trey Smith has developed into a really good player for Kansas City. That Chiefs offensive line was bad last year. We saw what the Eagles did dispatching it in Super Bowl 59. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, 2/5 of that offensive line, excellent as far as young players for Kansas City and just high-level players in general. The Chiefs knew that with question marks elsewhere along that offensive line in trying to protect Patrick Mahomes with what happened in Super Bowl 59, they had to get this deal done. I think it's a little bit of an overpay, but again, you are what somebody is willing to pay you, and the market continues to get reset really at all these positions with the salary cap continuing to blossom. And as we look ahead, Dominic Puni goes into year 2. Last year, he was a top 10 overall guard in football, and he graded out extremely well according to Pro Football Focus. The Niners don't need to make a decision now or that soon, but he was a third-round pick, only under contract for 4 years total. As he enters into year 2, you have to start thinking about what that Dominic Puni extension might look like and how much it might cost. Because if he continues to play like he did as a rookie and gets better, again, with the salary cap going up, it could be in the neighborhood of that Trey Smith type of contract. Puni last year as a rook, he had the 11th highest overall Pro Football Focus grade among all guards in football at 80.5. His pass blocking grade, 68.9. That ranked 40th. He could do a little bit better there, but he was one of the top run blockers, and we know that Kyle Shanahan has a run-heavy scheme. 81.5 the grade there. He didn't give up a quarterback hit. Number one at the position. He did give up pressures, though. A little bit spotty in that category, 35. That did rank 126. But with the eye test, physicality, speed, you could see why he played offensive tackle in college. So agile, and the sky is the limit for Puni. And if he continues on that ascent, he's going to demand a big contract. Lastly, Micah Parsons of the Dallas Cowboys is contract extension eligible, and he has no doubt that he's going to get paid, and he's going to get paid handsomely. What's interesting for Dallas, they gave Dak Prescott $60 million per year last year, and they gave CeeDee Lamb $34 million per year at wide receiver. Now, a lot of their salary cap is going to be tied up to 3 players, and that's a team right now that doesn't have a lot of depth because they've really struggled in the NFL draft the last few years. Here's what Parsons said, though, about his looming deal. I'm going to get mine no matter what. You know what I mean? Like, the markets change every year. The salary cap went up like another 18% this year, so if you want to know contracts, all the contracts are based off of percentage. Each player, a highly paid player, takes a percentage of the salary cap, so it's not really the number. It goes off by the cap. Micah Parsons, my prediction, becomes the highest paid defender and non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. Myles Garrett, earlier this offseason, signed that $40 million per year contract with the Cleveland Browns. Parsons has been in a similar realm and stratosphere as far as production, but here's the kicker. He's younger. Garrett is 29, going to be 30 soon, and Micah Parsons, he is still a young player who's entering his mid-20s with a lot of good football left. Now, how this impacts the San Francisco 49ers, has Nick Bosa become underpaid at the pass rusher spot? Chip, can you pop that graphic up once again? Because remember going into 2023, how Nick Bosa became the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of football, making $34 million per year? Well, here we are, not even 2 years after Bosa signed that deal. He has bumped down to number 4, and soon he's going to bump down to number 5 once Micah Parsons signs that deal. Shoot, Bosa could bump all the way down to number 6 if TJ Watt gets paid by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I said this at the time when Bosa signed that deal. Everybody wants to be a prisoner of the moment and make a big deal of him becoming, at that point, the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of football. Is it going to be an overpay? It's too much money. Well, we knew then where the NFL was going. Our business here at Chat Sports predicated, or at least leans heavily on the success of the NFL. We had some foresight. We knew that the NFL was going to continue to go up as far as a business model, and when that happens, the salary cap goes up. So I said at the time, it wasn't going to be long before Bosa got unseated as the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. And I think Micah Parsons will get that crown here soon. Now, the sack numbers haven't been as high as some other pass rushers in the game, but he's been very consistent. And what Parsons has done, he's dropped back into coverage, and he's gotten after the quarterback as a pass rusher. And still, the production that he's had has been awesome. 13 sacks as a rookie with 20 TFLs, 84 tackles for a defensive end. That's a lot. 13 and a half sacks in year 2, 14 sacks in year 3, and then last year in 13 games, he had 12 sacks. You know what Nick Bosa has that Micah Parsons does not? A Defensive Player of the Year award. Bosa won that in 2022. Went a long way in him getting that contract. 18 and a half sacks that year, 19 TFLs, and 90 pressures. I know that the sack numbers have been down for Bosa the last 2 years, but collectively over the last 4, this is insane production. And I think that Bosa has become underappreciated and undervalued and underrated by Niner fans. Some of that might have to do with his political leanings. I think that's ridiculous. His political preferences have nothing to do with him as a football player. 75 pressures, 90 pressures, 95 pressures, 69 pressures. The last 4 years, he has been one of the top pass rushers in the game. And now at $34 million per year, if he balls out like he did in 2022 or in 2021, that contract is going to be of excellent value for San Francisco. And since he won Defensive Player of the Year in 2022, here are his Pro Football Focus grades, where he's ranked among edge rushers since then. 90.9 grade in 2022, that was third at the position. 2023, 92.7, even better, second at the position. Last year, despite the sacks being down, he was still the 4th highest graded defensive end in football. 91 grade, missed 3 games. Pass rush grade, year by year, starting in 2022 up until last year. Third, 4th. 90.9, 92.6, 89.3. Bosa's pressure numbers. First in 2022. He had more in 2023. 95 up from 90, still finished third. And even though he missed 3 games last year, he was still 6th in the NFL in pressures. His sack numbers, first in 2022. PFF doesn't count half sacks. That's why it's up to 19. 2023, 14. That was 10th. Last year, missed 3 games, was still 15th. Nick Bosa, this defense wouldn't be anything without him. He's one of the top players in the game. He respects, or he demands that type of respect. It's time for more Niner fans to give him that respect. It's not just about sack numbers for him. All right, obviously a lot to talk about here today. Thanks for rocking with us. Thank you so much for watching the show. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you soon.